evening soothe and welcome you, O travelers from Upper Egypt.
You will travel no further, because you are come. Here, you are at the beginning of time.
Here was conceived and lived the great week of the creation of the world and the separation of the earth from the waters. You are at the house of the Father.
House of the Father, each pharaoh thought of himself as a son and wished to leave his mark upon it.
Each added, superimposed, overdid, outdid, through a span of 20 centuries.
The result is this fabulous labyrinth of facades and passages, esplanades and corridors, perspectives and detours, to which only priests and pharaoh had access.
The solemn threshold you have just crossed was forbidden to common mortals.
The city of God was a fortress, where a whole garrison of mystic votaries watched over the great divine scheme of things. Sunrises, eclipses of the moon, dynastic chains, the bark of night, the balms of immortality.
The Father is like unto an aged shepherd. His right hand holds the shepherd's crook that gathers in the dust of the stars. His left hand fondles a wild ram walking with him. He is the God of the first day. It is he who is called Ammon. At the very mention of his name, priests bow the head, and mere mortals prostrate themselves in the dust. Sometimes Ram and God blend together, and a curly-browed sphinx can be seen leading the flock, like this one, that the sculptor has fashioned in multiplicity, the god of court in Karnak. Time of its full splendor, this citadel could only be reached by a royal canal and a sacred anthem. The pharaoh, aboard his barge of glory, could moor here, welcomed on the holy quayside in the shade of the sycamores by the pontiff and his numberless retinue of priests with their feather fans.
Overwhelmed by the sheer size of these ruins.
The citadel that arose here was not designed on the scale of men, but on the grand scale of God, from whom all things flowed. The drought and the flood, the granaries and the plagues, dreams and power, death and survival. And if one of you this evening were to voice the question that you are whispering in your hearts, who art thou, Ammon? The answer would seep from these walls, these lintels, these pedestals, these secret chambers, these piled ruins. For the answer is written everywhere in 1,000 different hieroglyphics.
I am the father of fathers, the mother of mothers, and the bull of the 7 celestial kine. I open my mouth to speak in the midst of silence. I cause to be that men should have a path on which to tread. I open the eyes of all that they might see. My right eye is the day. My left eye is the night. And the waters of the Nile spurt from my sandals.
Father of all things, had for wife the goddess Mut, who sat a little below him, wearing a royal headdress of vulture feathers. Near to the father and the mother is the son, Hans, standing rigid as a mummy, with a crescent moon picked out upon his oblong head. They made up the Karnak triad, the Holy Family, for whom, and for 2,000 years, ceaselessly, complex fortifications were built by the hands of men.
Here in this place, I, Seti, built the resting place for the holy barks beside the avenue. It is made up of 3 contiguous sandstone chapels. The chapel of Ammon's bark is in the center. The chapel of Holmes is to the east. The chapel of Mut to the west. I believe this edifice is worthy of Ammon, and worthy long to bear witness to the glory of Seti II.
Now turn back the
Ramesses III conceived that more than one resting place was needed for the sacred barks of the Holy Family. So, midway between the sanctuary and the river, I brought into being this edifice, a veritable temple with pylon guarded by colossi, peristyle courtyard, pillared hall, and sanctuary.
Tutankhamun, the youthful pharaoh who re-established Ammon in all his power and glory after the treachery of my brother. I have left behind me in this courtyard nothing but this calcined sphinx.
A Nubian, reigning late in a crumbling dynasty, built this central pavilion, of which little now remains, but a specimen of the papyrus-capped gracious colonnade, and an alabaster block that serves as an altar for the divine offering.
A pharaoh whose name is lost, so many contradictions are graven on my pedestal. I left the symbolic image of all the pharaohs, this gigantic statue rising against the western side of the second pylon, clasping to its legs the tiny figure of a beloved queen.
Ramesses II, the grand elder of the Ramessid dynasty, the flame of the 19th dynasty. I claim the honor more than 3,000 years ago of having completed this second island you are about to pass. At its foot, I placed the sailor telling of the victory of Kaboses over the Hyksos from the east. Two of my images watched over the gates of the sanctuary. Only the southern statue has remained intact, but it is enough to keep alive the memory of my august reign. For 67 years, I wore the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. 3 royal queens shared my bed. The third was the daughter of the Hittite king, the most powerful monarch of Asia Minor. You may measure the vastness of my empire, but to judge the span of my life, know that after her I married 4 of my own daughters, and that the number of my children was 92 boys and 106 girls.
I, a pharaoh of the later period, a king of the twilight, Ptolemy Euergetes II, I built this marvelous gate leading to the chambers of God. The panels are of genuine cedar of the Lebanon, lined with Asian copper. May they open to you this evening and give you access to the most secret, most impressive part of the Karnak labyrinth.
Lofty and mysterious as a petrified oasis, this is the dwelling of Am. These are the mighty stone organ pipes of Karnak.
Let's listen a while to the confused hubbub of words that seem to seep from these walls, thick with the inscriptions of signatures and prayers. Let's dream in this forest of symbols.
The columns are all inspired by the umbilicals of the pipes of the river, which brought to Egypt both its grace and its knowledge. Some of the columns are open, that is to say, their capitals are open, while others are closed, like the flowers in the garden. The high chamber was built by St. the First between the second and third lines, and he decorated a large marble wall that columns were released. The decoration was complete by Ramses II, who used not reliefs at the time, but sun reliefs. This high chamber is the mother of all the 3 major visitors which everyone desired by his hands.
The function of this chamber is as essential both to religious and enduring. The physical presence of Mammon was there in the form of a statue transported along. And Pharaoh came here to regenerate his soul, since he reigned over Upper and Lower Egypt. In other words, with the universe, his body as Son.
Let us admire this cluster of hearts, in which tonight takes true gesture the very sap of the heart and stone. That sap that cleans giant parsnips, springing from rich silt, soaring the birds and reptiles. And I, so like magician anguish, with its poetic vitality, climbing even beyond the boundaries of death.
is dawn. And we can imagine the day awakening, as if the hieroglyphs were suddenly to shake themselves in slumber.
In the depths of the sanctuary, Amun the God, the Creator, is present in the form of his statue. There is the ceremonial for the opening of his mouth, for the mouth waters both men and lands. There are polishings, fumigations, repeated anointings, touchings of the face with a fork of silex and of adze, blessing the hoof of an ox. All these solemn rites have literally incorporated the soul of Amun in its receptacle of sculptured wood.
Pharaoh came into the divine presence this morning. He purified himself in the waters of the sacred lake. He will proceed to awaken the god of his reticle priests. For the god is still sleeping, as every night, in his tabernacle that is seen every evening.
Awake, Karnak, queen of the dwellings of the gods and goddesses that inhabit her. Awake, gods and goddesses, to the beauty of this new day. Awake in peace, Amun, Lord of Karnak.
The bond is broken, the seal unsealed. The twin gates of heaven are opening. The twin gates of the earth are swinging wide.
Hail to thee, Amun, Lord of Thebes, Lord of Lords, Master of Terror, and King of Ka.
Now, God is resting. We must leave the sanctuary. The sun has vanished behind the Theban mountains. Amun has vanished into the night with the sun, embarking once more upon that dark voyage that is the foretaste of death. This sacred lake, on the banks of which you have come to dream, for one can only understand by dreaming, this mirror set in the rock has reflected the finest firework display of antiquity.
A dazzling gleam that has lasted 20 centuries. As soon as one cluster of stars faded, another pharaoh fired another salvo. And this will be named forever the splendor of Thebes. It has been said that Thebes was the first city, the city of cities. Homer named it the city of 100 gates. for 100 trumpets sounded its fame.
Listen to the sounds of Karnak. The silence was deceptive, since the city for 20 centuries has resounded so much to the sound of song and harp that it was almost alive with music. Naturally, there are the baser tasks of the city, the crowded farmyards, the laden trellises, the papyrus presses, and the nobler tasks, the working of gold and silver, the polishing of the columns, the fashioning of the sandstone blocks.
But above all, there is the fabulous machinery of the universe. For God is in charge and is responsible for the functioning of the world.
Upon the terraces, priest astronomers observe the movement of the stars, are responsible for eclipses of the moon and the rising of the sun.
Other wise men, bending over their desks, keep the maps of the empire up to date, and the much more complicated maps of the kingdom of eternity. Watching over the furnaces, others supervise the mysterious metallurgical union of silver and gold into electrum, whose shining plaques would clothe the obelisks. Look now over the river to the west bank, where the sun sets every evening behind the Valley of the Kings.
It is the shore of the dead, the beginning of the beyond.
If some lights are still shining in the necropolis, it means that the embalmers are late at their work.
Their patron is Anubis, the somber god who prowls like a black dog around the cemeteries. Their god is Osiris, who knows all the secrets of the resurrection and watches 70 nights over the mummification workshops and the endless swaths of wrappings. We are at the turning point of the 18th and 19th dynasties, more than 3,000 years ago. Before it, every Tutmosis and Amenhotep. After it, every Seti and Ramesses. Now, we are at the moment of unbelievable sacrilege and revolution. Amenhotep IV changes his name, his god, and his capital.
Above all glories, he set love supreme. And his beloved wife, Nefertiti, shared his dream of a new faith and a new city.
Ammon no longer existed. Even his name was effaced from the monuments. The new god was called Aton.
The heretical pharaoh took the name of Akhenaton, devoting himself to his new worship, his poems, his prophecies, his new city of El Amarna.
And Karnak seemed to be relegated to the shadows. But the new religion lasted only as long as its inventor. The chisel, ruin, and fire all conspired to obliterate his image.
The new pharaoh was a child.
This child was to restore the ancient worship.
He rekindled 1,000 lamps of the abandoned temples of Karnak. He took the traditional name, and if his earthly life was short, since he died in his adolescence, his posthumous glory eclipses that of all the others, for his name is Tutankhamun.
His makeshift tomb was dug in the very floor of the Valley of the Kings. Over there.
It escaped the looters for 3,000 years. And in 1922, everything was there.
The sarcophagi, one inside the other. The statues, the jewels of gold, the sacred and profane furniture, the alabasters, the porcelains, that prodigious treasure that still draws the crowds, and that mask encrusted with lapis lazuli and cornelian, which stares at us from the depths of the night with the enigmatic smile of an immortal young man.
Let us return for a moment to the distant centuries when the world's first great queen, Hatshepsut, was inspired to dedicate 2 golden obelisks to Ammon. Listen.
Behold, I was sitting in my palace, meditating upon the being who created me, when the voice of my heart spoke, telling me to make 2 golden obelisks for him. My spirit took fire, thinking of what the men who would later see these monuments would say. They would say, "Why this mountain of gold?" But my dream was beyond my power. My 2 obelisks were not of gold, but of single stone, hard granite without a join. And the expedition to bring the stone to me took 7 months. Now the 2 obelisks have been set up. I must finish their dedication. I shall add this, thinking of future men who will not have seen the realization of my dream of gold. I wish at least that they may be able to say this, that my mouth was excellent in the words that issued from it, and that even in granite, I never went back on my word.
Torn from their native land, today obelisks rise in all the capitals of the modern world. In Rome, Paris, London, Istanbul, New York.
Above the vain tumult of cities, these stones stand like fingers raised for silence, preserving the tradition of ancient Egypt's meditation. And the breath of Ammon turns the machinery of the world in the heart of the Forbidden City.
each year, the harvest done, the grapes gathered, when the new wine rises to the head, Ammon takes a short holiday. On his barge of state, he sets forth for a honeymoon on the river.
He goes to Luxor, where he honeymoons each year with the goddess Amenet.
This is the beautiful festival of Opet. The joyous echoes still seem to come down to us from the depths of time. All the details are inscribed in the walls along the great colonnade at Luxor.
Once again, in this month of Pawki, the people of Thebes are gathering at the gates of Karnak for the grand festival of the god Ammon.
It is enough to hear the laughter, to know that the granaries are full and that the grapes are already fermented.
Open the station. The bark porters are moving off again from their resting point. There's the ram's head at the prow of the divine bark.
The barks of moved Hans and the Pharaoh are following in order. And you can just make out the baskets of fruit and flowers through the plumed parasols.
The front of the procession has reached the landing stage. Ammon is hoisted on his vessel, and it swings to face the current. But the current is strong, and the bare-chested men in the towing tugs row for all their work. And they never succeed if the men on the right were not holding the cables.
Listen to the darabuka players, rhythming the oarsman.
One behind the other, you can see the divine masks as dazzling as the sun. The sacred fleet has reached Luxor. That's the people's hall, the Halim of God.
And how could it be better expressed? This tender mystery that will reign over Luxor for 10 days and 10 nights, so that the world may be reborn, that the cattle may multiply, and the earth be fertile.
Take thy joy, O Ammon.
And give us joy too during these days of feast.
While we await thy return on the 11th day, and thy glorious descent of the Nile, and thy return to Karnak.
Yet the twilight fell over the city of God, as it falls over all things.
The boots of the great conquerors rang on the paving stones of antiquity.
Assurbanipal the Assyrian reached the gates of Thebes and defied the ancient citadel. Alexander of Macedon wished to add the title of Pharaoh to his glories.
Caesar the Roman clutched all the Mediterranean in his eager hand and opened it only to give a last caress to conquered Egypt.
Like a tree that has grown too old, Ammon himself knew no return of spring.
But the line of Aton, born of the dream of a pharaoh who was a poet, was luckier than the patriarch of Karnak. It was the one god of Akhenaton, the Our Father of the Christians and the Muslims, who raised chapels and mosques in the dust of Thebes.
Although the testimonies of a faith may fall into ruins, they do not die. The language may be lost, but it will be found. And Ammon, who reigns forever here, is not a god to be taken lightly.
He is a god of the beginning, when the earth and the waters were still mingled, as were the animals and men. He is a complex god, as powerful as the creation.
Ammon announced the salvation of man.
He also announced the salvation of the crocodile and the scarab, everything that moves, of the flowers of the earth. He deigned to assume the guise of a ram, a falcon, a goose, or a bull. He offered equality to all the companions of the universe.
And the language of the hieroglyphics is like this overwhelming faith, which, thanks to the floods of the Nile, raised these pylons, these colonnades, these obelisks.
May these hieroglyphics come to life once more, to bid farewell to you, new pilgrims to Upper Egypt. Like a sudden flight of a myriad sacred birds, their spread wings sprinkling the droplets of the river like a benediction.